Hey everybody, looking at my hair. Okay, I wanted to do a video today, 11/11. This is starting the Blossom Inner Wellness ministry. I created a private membership, private ministry association. And what I want to share is understanding emotional trauma. So if you guys have any questions, just let me know and I can we can talk about it. So what I want to share now is understanding that if you're in a human body, if you're watching this, you're in trauma. There's trauma that lives inside of the body, and it's a frequency. And when you're first born, when you're first being created in your mother's womb, the frequency of your mom is in the fetus. It's actually growing with the fetus, the frequency, the emotional frequency. And the trauma down the lineage of your family line is going into that child. So, the one beautiful thing about being in a human body, though, and this is nothing that the parents can do, is that the soul, when it decides to come forth and it decides to come into a certain family line, it has a certain path, it has a mission. And parents think that that they are guiding their child toward what, a good life, but actually they're there to help the child emotionally expand through the trauma that the relationships of mother, father, siblings, uncle, aunt, brother, whatever, cause that child. The child actually already has a journey that they're going on, and there's nothing that the parents can actually do about that. The one thing that they can do that I've learned is the name. There's a reason why people are guided to certain names for their child, and the name actually has a frequency. The name matters. But that's usually that's pretty much the only thing that the parents can do as far as guiding that child on a certain path, because again, the child's higher self already has chosen their path for this life. So, but the frequency of the name of that child does matter, and it makes a difference. My name was Jeanette for a day because my parents were told that they were going to have one big boy, and they ended up with two little girls. I have a twin sister, and so they put their first, if they had a girl, her name was going to be a certain name. I don't want to share her name in case she doesn't want to know everybody to know she's my sister. But anyway, they didn't have a name for me. So I was Jeanette, my mother's middle name. I was Jeanette for a day. And then this was in the 70s. And so the song Michelle was on, and they thought Michelle went better with my sister's name. And my mom really liked the name Michelle. So my name turned into Michelle. And so that's how I got my name. But was it because what was the inspiration for my mom to change my name? What was that intuitive inspiration? What so that is why that is how parents are guided to naming their child. It's like, oh, some parents don't even name their child until after the baby's born, and they feel into it and they look at the child and go, what is the name for this baby? The name matters. It's a frequency. So, going back to emotional trauma, when we are living in a human body, and if you guys have any questions, please show. I'd love to see your questions, or also where you're from. I'm here on the Big Island. I'd love to see if anybody's where you guys are at. So, emotional trauma is one of the ways that the spirit expands in the human body as it goes through the human life. Because when you are in a certain situation that is really traumatic, like abuse, if you stay at it as a victim in that abuse, there's no growth. And you live your life as a victim, and you're creating more victimhood, more ways that you are a victim. But if you integrate, and some people call it healing, but I don't call it healing because I don't believe that there's anything to fix about your human journey. Um, New York City, or New York, awesome. Thank you so much, Sean, for popping in there and letting me know where you're. It's awesome. New York, I was there for three days and I loved it. Running to different places to see everything. So back to emotional trauma. We're meant to go through emotional trauma for the spirit to emotionally expand, spiritually expand. And the only way that it can expand is through trauma, because what trauma does is it contracts the emotions. Have you ever seen children and they're laughing and they're so expanded, but when they started getting relationships with people, they contract. There's they something traumatic happens and that child comes in, they go inward. So what needs to happen for that emotional expansion for that spirit is for an integration of the trauma. And like I said before, there's nothing wrong with you, there's nothing to fix. But when you integrate the trauma you've been through, and I'm going to give you a practice to go to try this on for your own spiritual journey. When you integrate the trauma into all that you're free. You're free, because if you don't integrate the trauma and you just let your go live your life through the trauma, you're going to make choices based on the emotional frequency of that trauma. And you're going to make choices in your life, with your job, with your relationships, with who you think you are, with your self confidence. And it's all based on the trauma that you've lived in your life. And that's not freedom. That is slavery to the emotional frequency of the trauma that you've experienced. Awesome. Suzanne, hi, North Carolina. This is super cool. So let me give you an example. I have trauma with anger. There is, parents divorced when I was 15. My father committed suicide in 1994. I was 21. Mother struggled with depression and very neglected as a child. I could go into the story about it. I could play victimhood, but that's not why I'm sharing this. Why I'm sharing this, every single one of us has a story like that can go, "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry you experienced that." But that, in my view and how I live my life, that was a choice that I came into this family, and that emotional trauma, like I remember specifically being told when my father committed suicide. I remember exactly where I was, who was there. It's because the brain creates a pattern, and it's a shock to the nervous system, to the nervous system, and the brain creates a memory. And every single trauma has an emotional pattern in the brain that is connected, that it creates. So what I do when I was feeling lost and depressed, and for my own journey, is I'd put my hands on my heart and I would breathe into it, and I'd let myself cry, and I would breathe into it, and I would literally say to myself, "Michelle, this is a normal human feeling. There's nothing to fix about this feeling. There's nothing good or bad or right or wrong. This is just a frequency in my body, and it's meant to emotionally expand me." So I just allow it to be in my body. I notice it, I recognize it, I acknowledge it, put my hands on my heart, because I connect with my heart instead of my mind, instead of my brain. Your brain's going to be talking to you and create stories about the emotion, but there's no story. It's just a frequency. That's all that it is. It's a frequency in your body, and you're the meaning maker. You create meaning out of it, but there's no meaning. It's just a frequency. So when you put your hands on your heart and you connect with your heart and you acknowledge, yes, I experienced that when I was growing up. I experienced that at 21, experienced neglect. The frequency of neglect lives in my body. Frequency of neglect, of feeling alone, of feeling abandoned. Those are just frequencies. They don't mean anything unless I make them mean something. So I put my hands on my heart and I send compassion to the little girl that went through that. I don't feel sorry for her, because this is a journey she chose to take, I chose to take. And I feel into that and I go, this is part of me. This emotional trauma, that experience is part of my human journey. And I don't have to fix it. And I don't have to make it wrong or bad or good or right. I can feel sad, which is another frequency. Doesn't mean anything. It's just a frequency. So I put my hands on my heart and I send myself compassion and understanding, because only I really know what I've experienced in my life, just like only you really know what you've experienced in your life. And there's nothing to fix about yourself. People think if they fix something about themselves, they're going to be happy. You're not going to be happy because you can't fix it. You can't fix the emotion. It's just a frequency, and you're trying to fix a frequency inside of your body. It doesn't work. It will never work. Generation X, oh, awesome. I think we are the last strong generation. Yeah, it's meaning. Everything is meaning. It's what you make it mean. So breathing in. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for sharing your truth, Sean. So that's what I wanted to share. The Buddha says, you, more than anyone in the entire universe, deserve your love and compassion. That's what the Buddha says. The Buddha was a teacher. He was an enlightened teacher. He said, you, more than anyone in the entire universe, deserve your love and compassion. And we can send compassion and give compassion to other people, but when do we give it to ourselves? And I don't mean feeling sorry for yourself. It's not feeling sorry for yourself. It's compassion. It's going, wow, that little girl went through a lot, or that little boy went through a lot. And I put your hands on your heart. And let's actually do that right now. And I'm going to close this out because I don't have a lot of time, but I wanted to jump on because today is Saturday, and I'm going to start doing these tips and these insights and these practices on Saturday because it's an important day to remember. The Saturday is the Sabbath, and I'll share more about that at another video. But anyway, hands on the heart, everybody, and just breathe into this human body. Close your eyes. And I want you to acknowledge one really hurtful, challenging trauma that you've lived in your life. Just one. And don't try to fix it, or don't make it wrong or right or good or bad. Just notice the feeling and the frequency that it has for you when you think of that trauma. And for me, it's neglect. And it's just a frequency. And I breathe into your body. And feel it. Let yourself feel how that felt for that little girl or boy, child that you were. And you're not trying to fix it. You're just becoming the observer of that feeling. And now repeat after me. This feeling is a normal human feeling. There's nothing right or wrong or good or bad about this emotional frequency in my body. I acknowledge that this feeling lives inside of my body, because it does. And I send compassion and understanding to that child inside of me who first felt this feeling. And now breathe into that and give yourself permission to really feel compassion and understanding for that part of you. It's not feeling sorry for yourself, it's acknowledgement and recognizing that this frequency lives in your body. And now repeat after me. I fully accept that this frequency lives inside of me. I don't have to fix it. I don't have to judge it. I just am the observer of it. Breathe into that. Exhale. Repeat after me. I no longer need to let this frequency make my choices in my life. run the relationships in my life, run my self confidence and inner peace. I get to choose my emotional frequencies. I get to be free, acknowledging that this emotional trauma is a part of my human experience. And now breathe into that fully, fully embrace that. That's integrating the emotional trauma, you guys. That's our journey. We are living in a world right now that is huge, huge with emotional trauma. And it's growing. It grows every day with what happened in Lahaina, what happened in Acapulco, what happened is happening in Israel, and Palestine. It's growing, the emotional trauma. Our job is to return to love. This my ministry is about love. That's the whole thing. It's not about dogma, it's about love. And the first love is for yourself. And the first compassion is for yourself. It's not selfish, it's not self-absorbed. It's knowing that you matter in the world and that your personality comes from the emotional trauma you've experienced. And when you integrate it and you acknowledge it, and you let it be a part of your humanness, because it is, regardless of if you accept it or not, that's when you're free. And that's when you get to choose. Like when I said earlier, I'm addicted to anger. If I start to get angry and I can pause it and start to see, oh, I'm getting angry, and become the observer, oh, I'm getting angry, that's my freedom. That's where I get free. Oh, I'm getting angry. Now I get to choose because I can see the emotion coming on. If I just let the emotion take me in a boat and run my experience, that's slavery to that emotion, to that trauma. Then that emotion runs me. But if I notice it and I go, oh yeah, there's that anger. I can see it coming on. It's okay that I feel this normal human feeling. I don't have to make it mean anything. Now I'm free to choose what I want to choose. That's called emotional expansion. That's where we're headed. So I just want to say thanks for joining me, you guys. This isn't going to be very long. That's my message for today. Sending you guys lots of aloha. Much love.